What do you think is going to happen to all the customers here? Do you think they're going to ever get their money back?
Unfortunately, I don't think they will, unless some miracle happens that someone comes in and provides a bailout to the company to be able to pay off their debts. The customers are really at the bottom of the list here, and it seems like that. So once the SEC came in and fined BlockFi, then the deal with FTX was established. So FTX took the loan, or kind of bailed out BlockFi, and then that resulted, part of that deal structure was that BlockFi would hold its customer deposits on FTX, which it seems that money is just completely gone. So the SEC, deal really had two parts that ended up hurting retail investors here, but it's very unlikely that they'll get anything back.
Hey everybody, it's Eddie from Tokyo. This is your cryptocurrency update from Japan, and the SEC will most likely be the first to get paid in the lineup of creditors BlockFi owes money to. Yeah, that was Sasha Hodder. She is the founder of Hodder Law, and she was speaking to CoinDesk on Tuesday. It was just February that the SEC settlement with BlockFi was complete. You see, the SEC forced BlockFi to find funding, so it turned to FTX. And, well, the retail investors, they're damaged, not protected, which makes it absolutely shameful that the SEC is bragging about this disgorgement on behalf of the investing public. Yes, the general counsel for Ripple, Stu Alderati, he eloquently pointed this out. And it's just atrocious. Congress will definitely be hearing about this in the coming hearings. I'm going to let David Schwartz, the CTO of Ripple, take you out on this video. This is a precious opportunity for anyone who wants to level up on their knowledge, because he's the most intelligent and one of the most talented cryptographers in blockchain. Do listen and do learn. You're going to hear that the XRP ledger was built for those who want to use it. And also, it delivers on removing the middleman. And the idea that there's going to be a one world currency is hopelessly naive. And last but not least, you'll see at the end, he's a little depressed, but hang in there because he's got a very positive message for you. All right, everybody, do take care. Sayonara for now. Bye-bye.
And I'm really excited today to be able to interview the CTO of Ripple. If you're here, I'm sure you've heard of Ripple. So with that, I'd love to welcome you to David Schwartz. Welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. So yeah, I mean, I've been doing this since 2011. It's really hard to sort of mentally project back to that time, but Bitcoin was essentially the only game in town, and people were just starting to make clones of it. And I think the first cracks in the proof of work narrative were starting to emerge then. I know it sounds ridiculous today, but the thought then was that anybody could mine, and that like literally while you were sleeping, your PC would mine and you would just make money. And I mean, we know now that's tremendously economically naive. Someone's going to have the cheapest power. Someone's going to have the best ASIC. So it was just starting to not deliver on that decentralization promise. And transaction fees were just first starting to come up. And if the narrative is like, be your own bank, no middlemen, it didn't really feel like that. So with a bunch of other people, Jed McCaleb, at the very beginning, and Stephen Thomas, and later Chris Larson, other people, we built a blockchain that we really felt was meant to be owned by the people who were using it. And I know you think that's true of other blockchains, but it's just not. It's just not. The analogy that I sometimes use is Uber. Uber is not built for drivers and riders. I mean, it's built to be good enough for drivers and riders that they use it, but the owners of Uber want to make as much money as they possibly can. And every dollar they make is a dollar that a rider pays that a driver doesn't get. And the owners of Uber want to keep Uber's profits as high as they can. They make it just good enough that the riders and the drivers will use it. And that really is the model of many cryptocurrency projects. So if you look at Bitcoin, the transaction fees are as high as the miners can get them. And the limiting factor is, of course, if they were $5,000 a transaction, they wouldn't make any money because there wouldn't be any transaction. But they're incentivized to produce scarcity. And so we wanted to build a system that didn't have those kinds of incentives, a system that's built for the people who use it, a system that really delivers on the no middleman. Now, I wish I could say that we 100% delivered on that promise and it's all roses, but I'm an engineer at heart and everything is trade-offs. Everything has advantages and disadvantages. There's no such thing as a free lunch and all of those things. But the blockchain that resulted from that, what we today call the XRP ledger, has very, very low fees, very, very high transaction rates. And it's very, very decent. It's much more decentralized than most other blockchains. And the reason for that is that fundamentally, there aren't people trying to profit off the people using it. And so that's why, like, when I talk to people who are building projects like NFTs, I mean, a blockchain where they're the actual stakeholders, the people using it are the stakeholders, is a very different, a different concept. You might like Bitcoin as an asset, but you don't like 10-minute confirmation times. You can move Bitcoin on the XRP ledger. You can say Bitcoin is the digital asset that I like. I like its tokenomics. I like its volume, and liquidity. I'm happy with its volatility. I want to use Bitcoin. That doesn't mean you have to transact on the Bitcoin blockchain. Most Bitcoin transactions don't take place on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? A lot of them take place on centralized exchanges. And then there's the question of, well, what layer one blockchain has the characteristics I like? Does it have low fees? Have fast confirmation? Is it decentralized? Is it censorship resistant? And you don't necessarily have to be locked in to the same decision, to parallel decisions. But I also think fundamentally the idea that there's going to be one world currency is just hopelessly naive. I just don't see. And even if you do think that's going to happen, let's say you're a Bitcoin maximalist, Bitcoin, not the blockchain, but the asset. You think that Bitcoin is the be-all, end-all asset. Well, first of all, people are going to want to do all different kinds of things with that asset, and they'll need systems with different semantics. But also, we're not there today, right? 99.99% of the world's value is not in Bitcoin. And so we're going to need interoperability. We're going to need on-ramps and off-ramps. We're going to need all of the same things that the Bitcoin blockchain can't provide any of them. So there's still a lot of work done, not in the not right in Bitcoin.
Sure.
So Ripple is a company. It's centralized. We have a CEO. We have employees. We have people who hold Ripple stock, who own equity in the company. It's just like any other corporation. And we wanted to figure out what we could do. We wanted a decentralized blockchain, but there's, just like in the Bitcoin ecosystem, there's all kinds of companies in that ecosystem. And Ripple is one of those companies that, among other things that Ripple does, we interact with the XRP ledger. And the thing that we decided circa 2014, 2015, we were thinking, all these companies were doing all these different projects. There was just an explosion of grassroots adoption of crypto. And that was when buying things with Bitcoin was all the rage. There was a big increase in your average person had heard of Bitcoin. It went from something that only nerds knew about to something that was, on the news. And so there was that sort of inflection point. And Ripple started to be introspective and say, what can we do? What's missing that we can do? And what we thought about was we were very inspired by the internet. And most people think of the internet as a bottom-up kind of technology that's like for the people, but it wasn't in the early days. It started with military and government and researchers and people who had very focused use cases. So we thought, who could have a focused use case? And remittances and international payments, everybody agrees is broken. How many people in here have made an international payment? And how many have had a bad experience? Right? How many of you had to call up to check if the payment succeeded? And they said, we don't know, call back again in a couple more days. Right? I see a lot to happen. It's terrible. And it's nice when people have a problem that you have a solution to, rather than say, I have this new technology that does something totally new and different. You're like, oh, it's kind of cool. It's really nice when you say, look, there's something in your life that sucks and I can make it better. That's a much easier case. And so Ripple said, we're going to, but if you're going to go after institutional adoption, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take institutional adoption. It can't be 3 people in a garage. Like, it has to be an organized operation. So we said, what Ripple, the company, is going to do is we're going to focus on building high quality technologies that will allow institutional adoption. And so we looked, what are the blockers? Why can't banks use a cryptocurrency to settle? And the answer is their messaging systems are antiquated. They don't even know where the money has to go when they make a payment. The messaging isn't even closed loop. It's back in the 70s if you're lucky. And so we focused on building a system called RippleNet, which is an institutional messaging and settlement system that can settle with a digital asset. Meantime, all kinds of other projects on the XRP ledger, focusing on things like payments, but also things that are not payments, stable coins, kind of adjacent, and all kinds of different projects, including more recently things like NFTs. So there's an ecosystem of development on the XRP ledger, and then there's Ripple, who's, among other things, working to drive adoption, use the XRP ledger as a settlement.
David, my final question for you. So you've been in the space in crypto pretty much since the dawn of it. And what's your outlook for, call it, the next 6 months, year? What's your crystal ball say?
I mean, honestly, I'm a little depressed about the FTX collapse, and I am concerned about what dominoes are going to fall. But I also don't want that to distract the people who are building things. That doesn't make anything technological that somebody built go away. That doesn't make something that's been developed not exist anymore. And so I'm hoping that when all the ashes of this clear out, the projects that had solid fundamentals, were building good tech and building products that solve real problems, will still be there, and maybe they'll be a little easier to find. That, honestly, though, it is a little depressing right now, but do not let that discourage you from building. You know, venture capital's out there. That's why we created the Creator Fund. The problems still exist. The technology still work. I kind of hope that people can keep at. I've seen this happen. You know, I've been through the stocks collapse. I mean, there've been a lot of these before, and many times, like, we emerged out the other side. So I think we're going to, again, keep building.